Okay, let's jump straight in. Today, we are diving deep into the visionary master plan for Camp RORREAL. And look, if you follow action sports infrastructure at all, you already know the deal. For the past couple of decades, we've basically been building endless variations of the exact same thing. Sterile, modular, concrete parks. It's kind of just copy and paste at this point, right? But we've gotten our hands on a foundational blueprint that literally tears up that entire old playbook. Throw it out the window. What we are going to look at today is a highly functional architectural masterpiece. It's a concept that completely redefines the evolution of extreme sports training by taking raw street culture, cutting-edge sports science, and deep cultural education and smashing them together into one incredibly holistic ecosystem.
So, let's start by challenging literally everything you think you know about action sports facilities. Because I promise you, this blueprint goes so far beyond just pouring some concrete and building ramps. Normally, right, a skate camp is just a place to practice your tricks. You show up, you skate the mini ramp, you go home. End of story. But this document asks a way more ambitious question. It asks, what actually happens when you combine the physical, raw act of skating with the philosophical, boundary-breaking mindset of surrealist art? And then, and this is the crazy part, what happens if you back all of that up with elite-level biohacking sports science? As we're going to see, this model completely shifts the paradigm. It treats the athlete not just as a physical body that needs to be trained to land a kickflip, but as a complex mind to be cultivated and a delicate nervous system that desperately needs to be preserved.
To really get this, we have to look at the inspiration. This entire model proves that modern action sports are about art, they're about nature, and they're about community, not just landing tricks. The contrast here is actually pretty stark. Traditional camps are super isolated. But the RORREAL concept draws massive inspiration from holistic events. Think about the Pangea Festival, right? That's an event hosting over 13,000 workshop spots, seamlessly integrating driving electronic music, vibrant culture, and sports like bouldering and BMX. Or take the Tree of Life camp. There, kids are sleeping out in Sahara tents, they're actually connecting with nature, and they are literally pressing and building their own 7-ply skateboards from raw Canadian maple veneers. It's totally DIY. Camp RORREAL takes that exact holistic ethos, that beautiful blending of DIY culture, intense respect for nature, and absolute self-reliance, and scales the whole thing up into a permanent world-class athletic facility. So here's our roadmap for this breakdown. We're going to start by decoding the name RORREAL, then we'll move into the architecture of chaos, explore the revolutionary park monuments, and finally wrap up with biohacking and skater longevity.
Starting with Section 1, decoding the name RORREAL, focusing on the mind, the culture, and the meaning behind it all.
Because here's the thing about this camp. Before anyone is even allowed to step on a board, they need to truly understand the history and the culture they are representing. The name itself isn't just some catchy branding. It's a profound, deeply thought-out tribute. It's literally broken down into 3 distinct parts in its DNA. First up, we have RO, which stands for Rosa Parks. By referencing her historic 1955 refusal to give up her bus seat, the camp immediately embeds this core, unshakable foundation of anti-racism, resilience, and standing up against systemic injustice right into the kids. Next is OR. This is dedicated to a late friend named Jordan. This injects the absolute soul, the passion, and the raw talent of underground street skating into the camp's lifeblood. It's a constant reminder to these kids that they are part of a family, a community that honors its own. And finally, REAL stands for surrealism. Think about it. Just as artists like Salvador Dali totally broke the rigid, boring rules of reality, a skater does the exact same thing. A skater looks at a mundane concrete stair set or a handrail that normal people just walk past, and they imagine the impossible. This name alone dictates from day one that this is a place of incredibly deep cultural meaning. And what's truly fascinating when you dig into these original handwritten raw notes is how they explicitly outline workshops focused on things like female energy, anti-fascism, and even woodworking. I mean, the curriculum goes so far beyond just sports. They are planning mandatory workshops on consciousness, meditation, and self-defense, running right alongside stuff like screen printing and gardening. It's an educational curriculum purely designed to build highly conscious, fiercely resilient, and socially aware individuals. They are quite literally teaching these kids how to be better, more grounded humans, and they're just using action sports as the magnetic hook to get them into the classroom in the first place.
Just imagine the vibe here. Up to 5 kids per teepee tent, totally managing their own cleaning, their own dining, and building a genuine, tight-knit community from the ground up. The foundational blueprint notes lay out a 250,000 to 300,000 euro investment just to get this wild concept off the ground. And notice those living arrangements. It's not about luxury hotels. It's about creating a self-sustaining micro-society.
These attendees are making their own jewelry out of recycled broken skateboards, they're cooking their own pizzas in communal ovens, and they are out there tending to a vegetable garden. It's a total lifestyle immersion.
Moving on to Section 2, the architecture of chaos, redefining the physical space.
So, if the mind is supposed to be free and boundary breaking, well, the physical environment has to force that exact same level of creative adaptation, right? You can't put a free mind in a boring box. This design philosophy radically, aggressively breaks from the sterile, perfectly predictable patterns of modern skate parks. It literally forces athletes to instinctually reinterpret the space around them constantly. The original sources describe this perfectly. They argue that urban space shouldn't just be perfectly smoothed out and symmetrical if you want to unlock real creativity. The architecture of chaos relies heavily on unexpected angles and complex interwoven structures that demand a permanent, instinctual reevaluation of the environment. In fact, the blueprint actually compares the flow of this park to a driving, intense electronic music set. Think about a DJ building a track. The speed and rhythm never break. Every single element is interlocking to provide both massive airtime and the need for uncompromising split-second technical precision. It's essentially a specialized incubator for evolutionary pro training.
You can really see this in the macro to micro kinetic flow they designed. Check this sequence out. Riders drop in, they pop over the knuckle huck, and then they land in this hyper-flat bowl that acts as a giant energetic shock absorber. This sequence is literally a masterclass in physics. First, the skater drops from a massive tower, right, that builds extreme, terrifying base speed. Then they hit the knuckle huck. Now, this is a concept actually borrowed from massive snowboard events. Instead of jumping over a traditional gap, they pop right at the very apex of a tabletop edge, which allows for highly technical, intricate tricks in a super tight space. But the absolute genius here is the landing, the Berliner Selleteller. This is inspired by a legendary, incredibly shallow bowl in Berlin. This bowl catches the falling skater seamlessly. It absorbs that brutal, bone-rattling vertical impact and instantly converts it into pure, smooth horizontal momentum, shooting them out into the rest of the park without losing a single drop of speed. It's brilliant. And that functional genius just keeps going with things like their convertible foam pit. This thing seamlessly transforms from a totally safe biomechanical testing ground into a rigid, unforgiving, real street spot. Now, usually, foam pits are just standalone training tools, kind of shoved in the corner of a gym. But here, the approach to the pit features a genuine, perfectly scaled replica of the famous Viennese Stufen, the Viennese stairs, topped off with a custom-crafted metal parking block for grinding. So athletes can test incredibly complex, dangerous maneuvers and land safely in the foam while they learn. But when they are finally ready and they've got the trick dialed, a highly stable, custom-fit cover is placed completely flush over the entire pit. Instantly, like magic, that whole zone transforms into a harsh, uncompromising street environment, where those exact same stairs and ledges can be skated for real, with zero suspension and zero room for error. They even built a historical bridge into the park by perfectly replicating the exact geometry of the legendary Orich London Gap, right into the main flow. If you don't know, a London Gap is a very specific, notoriously tricky street feature. You have to pop off a raised platform, clear a physical gap entirely in the air, and land on a lower set of stairs before finally hitting the flat ground. By reconstructing the exact dimensions, the exact angles, and the precise horizontal distances of this deeply nostalgic European skate landmark, they are directly triggering the muscle memory of an entire generation of older athletes while challenging the new kids. It acts as the absolute perfect speed generator within the chaotic flow of the park, forcing riders to have absolutely flawless, pinpoint timing. But central to all of this chaos is the 10-meter A-frame roof. This is an exact homage to Miami's infamous Lot 11, and it features mathematically perfect, curved granite ledges that literally clamp together at the top. This isn't just a ramp, guys, it's a structural marvel. The exact, brutal slope of the legendary Lot 11 down ledge is recreated here down to the absolute millimeter. But of course, RORREAL elevated it. On one side, you have standard straight granite edges for clean traditional tricks. But on the other side, it is a true masterpiece of carpentry and masonry. Two mathematically calculated curved ledges that clamp together perfectly at the peak. As a skater slides down this massive 10-meter curve, they have to constantly micro-adjust their center of gravity to manage both the dropping elevation and the sweeping lateral curves simultaneously. It is an immense, mind-bending technical challenge. Let's move into Section 3, Revolutionary Park Monuments, and how they are progressing safely into the vert era. So while the street skating sections are obviously highly technical, vert skating involves terrifying bone-breaking heights. And RORREAL has completely solved the safety equation here.
They accurately reconstructed the absolutely brutal transition of Taz Pappas's legendary 1996 vert ramp, but they modernized it with a dynamic, computerized hanging rope system. Just for some context here, back in 1996, the Australian skater Taz Pappas filmed an iconic video part on a halfpipe that had an incredibly steep, unforgiving vertical transition. It gave you massive, towering pop, but it left absolutely zero room for error. You make a mistake, you pay for it. RORREAL recreated this exact wooden behemoth using CNC milled precision so it's geometrically perfect. But to completely prevent the types of career-ending injuries that plagued vert skaters in the 90s, they installed a computerized rope system called the hang-asile system right into the ceiling above the ramp. By catching falling riders midair and eliminating those catastrophic impacts, this technological marvel creates what they call a fearless laboratory for progression. It works like this. The rider wears a super lightweight harness that doesn't restrict their spinning, their tweaking, or their movement at all. You barely know it's there. But the literal millisecond the overhead computer detects a loss of control high above the ramp's edge, a dynamic braking mechanism instantly engages. Instead of plummeting 15 feet onto hardwood or concrete, the skater simply floats weightlessly in the air. I mean, this is a truly wondrous sci-fi level technological leap for action sports. It completely removes the existential paralyzing fear of injury, allowing these athletes to try multi-rotational, highly futuristic tricks over and over and over again without any physical consequence. Which brings us to Section 4, Biohacking and Skater Longevity, focusing on the body pillar. A durable skater is a smart skater, and RORREAL treats these kids like the elite athletes they actually are. Let's be real, the old days of just absolutely destroying your joints for a single video part and just hoping for the best, those days are absolutely over in this master plan. Looking at the early planning notes, extreme temperature therapy using saunas and ice baths isn't just an afterthought, it's baked directly into the mandatory daily camp routine to flush out toxins. Think about it. When you are taking repeated, heavy impacts on solid concrete all day long, your muscles suffer thousands of microscopic traumas. The master plan explicitly mandates on-site saunas and cold plunges. This cyclical therapy of extreme heat, followed immediately by extreme cold, forces the blood vessels to rapidly dilate and constrict. This massively accelerates the flushing of lactic acid and inflammatory markers right out of the tissue, dropping recovery times to an absolute minimum. Their holistic biohacking ecosystem is perfectly mapped out here to counteract the intense physical trauma of action sports. They've essentially identified the three main vectors of physical breakdown in skating. First, foot and ligament strain from wearing flat shoes and taking hard landings. Second, deep muscle fatigue from continuous explosive output. And third, cellular tissue damage and nervous system depletion. And as you can see, for every single one of these issues, they have an embedded, highly scientific protocol ready to deploy. They're ensuring these kids can skate hard for decades, not just burn out after a few years. Take ankle injuries, for example. To prevent them, they partnered exclusively with Sean Hale and his Evo sandals, which utilize a really clever tennis ball feature to literally rebuild foot arches and balance. This is absolutely fascinating to me. Skateboarders constantly wear completely flat, vulcanized shoes, which over time leads to severely weakened foot arches and massive susceptibility to rolled ankles. It's just a known hazard of the sport. So, to combat this, the camp integrated daily, mandatory barefoot and stability training using these Evo sandals. These aren't normal sandals. They have a sliced tennis ball positioned directly underneath the arch of the foot. Just walking around the camp in them neurologically activates and strengthens the deep myofascial tissue of the foot. By physically rebuilding this foundational arch, athletes drastically improve their natural balance, they noticeably increase their pop on the board, and they heavily armor their ankles against sprains and debilitating ligament tears. It's biohacking from the ground up. And beyond just physical therapy, kids are participating in functional supplement workshops, actually learning how to rapidly repair tissue and replenish electrolytes after a heavy session. They aren't just being handed a sugary sports drink and told to go rest. No, they sit in actual classrooms and study specific biological case scenarios. If they suffer a ligament stretch on a handrail, they learn exactly which natural anti-inflammatories and specific micronutrients will speed up cellular repair. They learn the hard science behind the after-skate session, figuring out how to replace depleted minerals and how to use adaptogens to calm their highly taxed central nervous systems. The goal is that they wake up the next morning biologically primed, pain-free, and completely ready to push the limits all over again. Finally, Section 5, the blueprint for the future, a holistic ecosystem. When you pull back from all the details and just look at the entire picture, the sheer magnitude of this vision becomes astonishingly clear. We are no longer just looking at a place with a few wooden ramps and a half-pipe in a warehouse.
Camp RORREAL is the absolute ultimate synthesis of mind, space, and body. It's a true visionary blueprint that elevates extreme sports from mere weekend recreation into a highly tuned lifestyle of longevity and purpose. It demands deep cultural respect and historical awareness from its athletes. It forces instinctual, hyper-creative adaptation through an unyielding, chaotic architectural flow. And it wraps all of that in an elite sports science recovery matrix that ensures the athletes' bodies can actually withstand the insane, superhuman demands of modern progression. So it really leaves you with a massive question. As action sports continue to mature and hit the mainstream, shouldn't every single training facility on the planet adopt this visionary, holistic approach to athletic development? Because if this master plan proves anything at all, it's that to build the champions of tomorrow, you can't just build a better skate park. You have to build the whole person, their mind, their environment, and their body. And honestly, that is exactly what Camp RORREAL has laid the foundation to do. I mean, what do you think? Is this the future?